a video of them?
God damn.
You will take the plate? You want to take the plate?
Oh shit.
Dad was arrested on live TV after a neighbor's ring cam caught his toddler waving a gun around in an apartment complex. Now, the footage shows a little kid wandering around in a diaper, playing with the gun and pulling the trigger. The police were filming for a reality TV show and rushed to the home after neighbors called saying they saw the 4-year-old pointing the gun before going back inside the apartment.
Where'd you put down that toy?
The dad told the cops there was no gun.
I've never brought a gun in this house.
But they found it loaded. He was handcuffed and arrested for neglect. Luckily, no one was hurt, and the toddler is now back with his mom.
They talk about gun violence. Well, you know, how is this little boy waving and carrying on with a gun, and it was loaded? Luckily, that boy didn't go up, you know what I'm saying, because it wouldn't have been good at all if that gun would have went off. And, you know, we see innocent people get hurt, killed by guns just going off. This little boy could have been hurt, killed by this gun just going off. So it's like, you know what I'm saying, people got to be smarter than that. And it's not these kids that can get these guns from kids. It's these adults that's being careless with the guns. That's why these kids getting the guns. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like how little boy gonna have a gun in the hallway waving around where the neighbor ring cam caught it? You know what I'm saying? So that lets you know it's the irresponsible people that got these guns is why these kids is acting the way they is.
The 2 teens in Vegas have died in separate medical emergencies this month. This 18-year-old senior suffered cardiac arrest after gym class, and his family says he was found unresponsive in the school bathroom. The exact cause of his death is still under investigation, and this 16-year-old sophomore died during a flag football game. Officials say she had a rare heart condition that isn't always detected on a normal exam.
Police were called to a house in Clear Lake, and upon opening the door, found blood everywhere. Christine Paolilla was born on Long Island in 1986 to mother Lori and dad Charles. Tragically, however, dad Charles was killed when Christine was only 2 years old. Then, in 1991, 5-year-old Christine woke up in horror, I guess you could say. She woke up one morning and her hair was all over her pillow. At 5 years old, if you can believe it, Christine had developed alopecia. She, over the course of a couple of weeks, she was completely bald down to her eyelashes even. Gone. This affected her self-esteem a huge amount, and when combined with the bottle glasses she wore, she wasn't swimming in confidence. She was bullied and made fun of a lot in her New York school. Kids would laugh at her, they would steal her wig and point and laugh at her. As a lonely 14-year-old new, Texan immigrant, she fell in with the wrong crowd. At a party, she met a guy named Chris Snyder. She fell for him as he would always tell her that he didn't care about the thing all the other kids made fun of her for. To her, he seemed to be the first person who didn't care that she was completely bald, and he was rough around the edges, and he was exciting. And they hit it off. They were inseparable, even though he was 2 years older. Chris and Christine, they did everything together, except when he did an armed robbery. She didn't take part in that. He spent some time in jail for that one, and after, he went straight back to Christine, who was waiting for him. So Christine Paolilla's parents, they disapproved of her relationship with Chris Snyder, as did her new best friends, Rachel and Tiffany. When Christine made friends with them, this is like the opposite of the Chris part. She was happier than she'd ever been, ever. She started at freshman high school while Chris was still put away, and that's where she met the 2 girls. They were a year ahead of her in school. They were popular, they were cool, and they bonded intensely. They took Christine under their wing, and they did everything. Christine, she felt so comfortable and trusted Tiffany and Rachel so much that at home when she was with just them, she wouldn't even wear her wigs around them, which was a huge leap for her. Christine, she went from awkward outcast to cool, beautiful girl herself, confident and popular. In 2003, Christine was voted by the school Miss Irresistible. In May 2003, Tiffany and Rachel, they graduated. Christine was still in school. Rachel and Tiffany moved in together to a small brick and wood home in the area as they prepared for their post-school adventures, and they both worked in a bar over the summer. Christine, still in school, still a year behind. She was working at the makeup counter in Walgreens at the time she began to feel, once again, abandoned. In 2003, police were called to a house in Clear Lake. 3706 Millbridge Drive was the address police raced to, and upon opening the door, found blood everywhere. Inside was a horrifying scene. Blood was everywhere. On the couch lay Tiffany on the right, Adelbert on the left. Both had been shot dead. On the floor lay Rachel and Marcus, the same. Countless shell casings from 2 different weapons were found, blood pooling left, right and center. 2 had been shot as they sat. Marcus, it looked like he had tried to run, but he didn't make it. Rachel, who lay on the floor, had also been severely and brutally beaten around the face, and she'd been shot in the groin multiple times, as had Tiffany. Beside Rachel lay her cell phone, with 911 dialed. She just never managed to hit the call button. The investigation began, and witnesses saw 2 people there earlier, a young man and a young woman. Sketches were done. Now, what was Christine doing at this time, I wonder? Well, she was the object of great G-R-E-A-T sympathy, but the actual police work went nowhere. The killings seem likely, intentional. It seemed like the killings was the objective, killing them. Both the girls, Tiffany and Rachel, they'd been shot several times in the groin, so it seemed very personal. And Christine's name, it never came up. After all, she was still in high school, still a kid. Miss Irresistible. $100,000 was offered for information. Tips came and went, eventually drying up entirely. Christine once again went back to drugs in 2004, a year after graduating. She was arrested for shoplifting, but the one good thing was that she did actually eventually, properly, finito, break up with Chris Snyder. And Christine went from one fella to another. While in rehab, she met a Justin Rott, a heroin addict. Justin was more or less the same situation as Chris. They became obsessed with each other and yada yada yada. 1 year later, wasting no time, they married. On the 8th of July 2006, so almost exactly 3 years to the day after the quadruple homicide, Houston police, they got a phone call, anonymous, from someone who seemed to know a lot about the murders. Now they didn't do it, but they said they had spoke to someone in rehab who confessed, was the word they used. Actually, bragged was the word they had used. And they were able to tell, this anonymous caller was able to tell the police, things only the killer would know, including that Rachel had tried to dial 911 before she was stopped and executed. He gave the police the name Christine Paolilla. Christine looked like the sketch, and witnesses would confirm that was who they had seen. She was arrested on July 19th, 2006. When interviewed, in between bouts of her getting sick from withdrawals,
Okay.
she was saying Chris was responsible. It was his idea. He said she never went into the house, but of course 2 guns were used. Then she would say that she'd been forced to shoot. The good old one. The gun just went off.
So the gun was in your hand, and what was he telling you? 1, 2, 3?
He was holding on to it too.
Okay, like on top of your hand or something?
Yes. Like,
yeah, like that.
I couldn't even tell you how it was, like, but that one,
But whatever happened, Chris, he made me do it. He was responsible. The abused partner who did whatever he said. Once the news broke that Christine was arrested, a family member of Chris Snyder's called him. See, at the time he was in Greenville, South Carolina, and called him and said, hey, listen, the police are probably going to be looking for you real soon. So he did a runner. The police followed and eventually found him in the woods. He had killed himself overdosing on prescription medication. Christine Paolilla went on trial in 2008, and she was convicted on all 4 counts of murder. This would be a death penalty case, except Christine was a juvenile at the time of the murders, and so she was sentenced to life in prison, where she is remaining today. Please, take care of each other as always, because I love you. Mike out.
This story right here is just real sad now. I ain't know what alopecia was until the whole Jada Smith thing came out. So I know how it could be very traumatizing for a female who's trying to grow hair, or that had hair and can no longer have it. But when she got with this crazy guy, he made her do some crazy, unthinkable things, though. It's like, man, how could you do that to people? How could you do that to the folks that you was around, to the homies that was helping you when you was down? How could you do that to them? And then that just make you wonder and realize, like, man, will any of your friends or anybody you love, will they do stuff like this to you? But then again, it's like you never know nowadays, because it's like the world is so crazy.
This story out of California is a good reminder it's not that hard to not be an asshole. It all happened last week outside of this art gallery in San Francisco. While hosing down the sidewalk, the owner of the gallery aims the hose directly at a person who's homeless sitting on the ground and sprays it directly on her. The woman cries out as she's soaked, and the man tells her to leave. Police soon arrived, but after interviewing the owner and the woman, no action was taken. This video went viral, and at first, the gallery owner told local news he repeatedly tried to get cops to help the woman off the street.
This woman is, it's a very, very sad situation. And she's very psychotic.
And while he admitted that he knew what he did was wrong, he wasn't necessarily sorry.
I find it hard to apologize when we've had no help on this situation.
Government data reports that 30% of the entire country's homeless population lives in California, and just last week, LA County declared a state of emergency to help solve the crisis. But experts say solving homelessness is a complex problem that stems from multiple issues, such as a lack of mental health care options to a short supply of affordable housing. Since the hose episode went down, the gallery owner's business has been vandalized, and he's received death threats. He claims he later went up to the woman to apologize for his actions.
I'm deeply apologetic and abhorred when I watch that video. I'm committed to making amends and helping others.
Police say they're still investigating what went down, and community members continue to demand charges be brought against the gallery owner.
Now, my thing is, what they gonna do about this whole homeless crisis? Because if you look, and you can get on YouTube, you can get on here and put in Skid Row, and if you know how bad it is with the homelessness now, ever since COVID came, a lot of stuff tanked. A lot of people who was barely holding on, a lot of business as well tanked. So then that's when you ask yourself, Mr. Government, Mr. President, who's, I understand, helping these folks out overseas that need help because, you know, they being terrorized. But what about people in our own state, our own country, our own, you know what I'm saying, land? What about them people? And mental health for homeless people is something that need to be, you know, taking effect if they do ever decide to come up with a program to help these folks. Because a lot of people are mentally traumatized, you know what I'm saying? So what we gonna do?